It's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives for families of critically ill patients in intensive care, so that you can have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. In last week's blog, I talked about if your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, it's time for a new paradigm. You can check out last week's blog by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to talk to you about when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Do you get first choice or the consolation prize? Before I get into today's topic, I want to share a quote with you that I wrote on today's topic, and the quote says, "People tend to act in ways that are consistent with who they view themselves to be, even if that view is inaccurate. Our focus, self-perception, and self-talk determine what we say, how we say it, what we do, how people treat us, our physiology, and where we end up in life. And it also determines the care and treatment your critically ill loved one is receiving or not receiving in intensive care." You should always think before you speak to ensure what you are about to say or do portrays you in a positive, confident, determined, desirable, and valuable way. Why? Because people will treat you the way you view yourself. No one will ever do or say anything to you that you don't invite them to do. Having this awareness that you view yourself, your family, and your critically ill loved one in a positive light when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care will make all the difference to how you and your family will be treated when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Now, today's topic is really all about how you and your family can dive into your own power when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Today is really all about shining the light how you can maximize peace of mind, control, power, and influence when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. The 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care who don't have peace of mind, control, power, and influence are the ones who don't ask the right questions, and they are the ones who get the consolation prize only. They are the ones who continue to be intimidated by the perceived power and the perceived authority of the intensive care team. That makes it very easy for the intensive care team to have things their way. It makes it easy for them to impose their mainly hidden agenda onto you and your family. Acting and behaving like 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care behave makes it easy for the intensive care team to go on autopilot. They will be negative, they will tell you it's all doom and gloom, and they will tell you that they know what's quote unquote in the best interest for your critically ill loved one. How powerful you view yourself and your family is critical. Think about this for a minute. Which family would you rather be? Would you rather be a family who trusts the intensive care team blindly and who's taking everything for face value the intensive care team is telling you? Or would you rather be a family who knows the right questions to ask? A family who's not intimidated by the perceived power and the perceived authority of the intensive care team, who stands up for their critically ill loved one and who knows how to get peace of mind, control, power and influence fast. And if you have come to this website and to this video, your critically ill loved one is not a straightforward patient in intensive care. If you have come to this website and this video, you know for a fact that your critically ill loved one is either very unstable and in a very critical condition, or your loved one may be in a life-threatening situation. Your loved one may be in intensive care for long-term treatments and long-term stays, including long-term ventilation. Your loved one may be having a severe or traumatic head or brain injury. Your loved one may be threatened with an NFR, not for resuscitation, or DNR, do not resuscitate order. Or your loved one may be in a situation where the intensive care team suggests a withdrawal of treatment or a limitation of treatment as being quote unquote in the best interest of your critically ill loved one. Or your loved one may even be approaching the end of life in intensive care. And you and your family know for a fact that what you are doing is not getting you peace of mind, control, power or influence. You and your family know by now that if you don't change your approach, the intensive care team will hand you out the consolation prize and not the first choice. And they will be doing so by telling you that they are the only ones who know what's quote unquote in the best interest for your critically ill loved one. Keep in mind, the intensive care team hasn't told you what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care. And the intensive care team hasn't told you that the positioning of your critically ill loved one's diagnosis, prognosis, as well as the care and treatment offered or not offered is all subject to what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care. How do I know? Well, after more than 15 years intensive care nursing in 3 different countries, and after I have literally worked with thousands of critically ill patients and their families, I have pretty much seen it all. I know the secret intensive care language and how to speak it, and I can help you translate the intensive care team's talk into your language so that you can understand what's really happening in intensive care. I have also worked for more than 5 years as a nurse unit manager in intensive care, and that gave me plenty of insight into what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care. And you must know what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care, because if you don't, you and your family will inevitably get the consolation prize in this once-in-a-lifetime situation that you can't really afford to get wrong. You and your family owe your critically ill loved one your advocacy, and you can only be a strong advocate if you quickly learn and understand that intensive care is not an environment where the what you see is what you get applies. Intensive care is such a complex, dynamic hierarchical, political, and volatile environment. If you don't get a handle on things quickly, the intensive care team will do with you and your family what they do with the 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care, who don't have peace of mind, don't have control, don't have power, and don't have influence. And the intensive care team will sell you to you and your family that they are the only ones who know what's quote unquote in the best interest of your critically ill loved one. And everything they are saying, when they are saying it, and how they are saying it, is not only dependent on what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care, but it's also dependent on how much peace of mind, control, power, and influence they perceive you to have. They can smell it. So, how can you get the first prize and not the consolation prize? And how can you get peace of mind, control, power, and influence quickly whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You get to that all-important feeling of peace of mind, control, power, and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn quickly how to get peace of mind, real power, and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions. Discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. How to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle, and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. You get 5 killer tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to peace of mind, control, power, and influence in your situation. You'll get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You'll get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. And how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care, and it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I'll see you again in another update next week. Make sure you also check out our Your Questions Answered section, where I answer your question, or send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Also check out our product section, where you get more ebooks, videos, and audio recordings, and where you can also get one-on-one consulting with me via Skype, over the phone, or via email. Choose the option that's working best for you. You can also contact us via phone on our Contacts tab. This is Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.